Because people always say, if you are struggling with mental health, you should tell people. And you're like,
Sure,
all right,
yeah,
I'll tell some
yeah,
people then. So I started telling people, hey, I'm not doing very well. Is anyone,
yeah.
can you help me with this thing? And it just wasn't happening. And I was like, I didn't understand what was taking so long. So then when I took it into my own hands at that point, that's when you see the truth of everything. Hello, my name is Marvyn Harrison. This is the Dope Black Dad podcast. Today, I'm joined again by my friend, colleague, fellow Dope Black Dad, Marvin Crichlow. How are you, Marvin?
I'm not too bad, brother. Like we were just saying, it's half term, so just enjoying a little bit of time with my son. The weather's been great for the majority of the week. It's raining today, but for the most part, had good weather. So can't complain. How are you?
How are you coping with of half term though? Because I'm suffering, and what's weird is that it's not bad. It's just like half term is a fraudulent activity. They force you to spend more time with your children, even though you spent basically a whole year with them. When really we've never been designed to spend that much time with anyone, even the people we've created. So like, I want to say F half term, but I don't want to swear.
And sometimes, I think it's hard to find activities and things to do. And I mean, I don't know what it was like post-COVID. I can't cast my mind back that far, or say pre-COVID, I can't cast my mind back that far. But now I'm just thinking, what do we used to do? What do we do for half term? Because now I feel like the options are limited.
Listen, I've been clawing at the bare minimums of experience. Also, like I'm in quarantine, so I have to stay in my house. Sure. I can't leave. Yeah. And the thing is, I never break the law ever. I think it's disgusting people break the law. But I really did consider like just going for a walk and go to the shop. And the moment I thought about it, one of the quarantine wardens came and knocked on my door to make sure I was there and I was at home. Okay. I was like, yo, I almost thought about let's just go for a light jog. It was like 9 a.m, and then they just turned up. Can you to Marvyn Harrison, please? And you know what is as a black person when people knock on your door and you're not expecting it, immediately you're like, who's this? MI5? Is this police detective? Exactly. I turned into my mum. Don't bring people to my house. Like, and so I'm sitting there and I'm like, nah, this doesn't feel good. And then they were like, can we have some ID, please? And I was like,
wow.
Yeah, sure. So I can never be on the run because I feel like my heart won't let it happen. It will probably implode. Yeah. But we're just hanging out in the house, really, just destroying the house. Like I decorated my house when I got back. And repainted the living room and the kitchen and like filled up some of the holes.
Oh, nice, you're busy. Yeah.
Listen, bro, you know what it is that I've been in hotels so long. I was so house proud when I got back. I was like, home. There's a home. So I came and I just immediately started fixing stuff, and then like the kids are looking at me like, "Daddy, what are you doing?" So it's been interesting. Have you done anything yet? Have you actually made it out and gone anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing we did, we went to a golf driving range the other day. So I've tried to get my son. I tried to get him to different sports. So we went to a driving range, which was good. We took one of his cousins as well. That was good. But that's it really. Other than that, went to the arcade, did a bit of window shopping, but. Yeah, it's just a bit. I think we're just over lockdown. I think that's the problem. So even now, you get an opportunity to go out. You don't really want to go out. You're still kind of, you're still kind of beaten down, I suppose. So yeah, that's been a bit.
I feel like half terms are just because schools are fed up of looking after our children. So there's so many of them, and you're just like, what's this one for? And then there's an inset day on your first day back. Sometimes they do it the day before you leave. I'm just like, you guys are just looking for opportunities. Basically, what I think it is, they pay teachers so incredibly bad that they just create these reasons to like minimize work. I'm pretty sure teachers are going to listen to this and be furious that I've said this, but I just wish they paid our teachers better because it's just like they look after our actual children. That's kind of important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the other thing I've done is I put my son into a football club, like a half-term football holiday camp as well. And I think, so summer activities or like, half-term activities like that, I think are really good. But again, it's just more money you end up spending so they can stay occupied. Because otherwise, they're just going to be bored or playing Fortnite or something.
Man, listen, my son came to me the other day and he was talking to me about WWE. And I was really happy, but also slightly sad because I know what comes next. Next is like, I would like to get a computer. And I'm like, no. The thing,
it starts.
The thing for me, is I know the computer phase is expensive, first and foremost. So it's just like, when like you buy stuff now and like I can go to an airport and on the way back pick up something really like Lego for like $29.99 and it's like, you got me Lego. In about 3 years time, it's going to be like, Dad, I want a PlayStation 7. It's like $6.99 plus games and a controller.
This is it. That's the thing. And when all their friends have got it, it's kind of setting you up because you can't be that parent that says no when all their friends are doing it and all their other parents are saying yes. So yeah, put it back into a
Yeah,
corner, definitely.
it's like, no, I can't afford you to get a PlayStation 7 as I get into my Range Rover. It's like, no, I can't. It's like bad dad alert. So today, yeah, I woke up this morning and I was just like, it's really interesting because I've had an intense year. I'm really sensitive to people's mental health right now, and so I was looking at Naomi Osaka, and I was just like, why is this such a big topic? Like, why is this such a discovery for people? She's saying her mental health is at risk. I don't want to play, and I don't want to talk to the media, and the reason why specifically is because people are coming after me for how I perform on clay, and this is a clay tournament. So you're just going to ask me and put doubts in my head about my performance. My performance is enough, no? So for anyone that doesn't know, people may not even know who Naomi Osaka is, but Naomi Osaka was a tennis player. I think she's actually number 2 in the world, but she withdrew from the French Open after a few days of controversy because she refused to take part in her press obligations during the tournament. And, you know, she announced the decision on social media with quite a long statement, but it was a really important account and really honest as well. And, you know, she was then fined $15,000 and told that could be disqualified if she keeps missing press conferences following her win with, I think it was Patricia Maria Tig she was playing. And she just said, like, she's going to take some time away from the court. And she just said, I'm out, and deuced it up. To deal with her issues of depression and anxiety, as well as avoid being a distraction for the rest of the tournament, which I feel like is almost noble. But then obviously, in this modern world, is that anyone that's sort of a slightly right-wing reporter, they just decide to turn this into another experience of wokeism, and you use media to sell your brand deals, and you know you use them to put your message out there about the things you care about, but you don't want the scrutiny. And I was just like, scrutiny for what? She's the number 2 tennis player in the world. What scrutiny? What do you have to say?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can you even play? How do you feel about it? How did it land to you?
I mean, I think it was amazing. I think it's nice to hear that, you know, she doesn't see herself as a superhero or someone who needs to go like put themselves out there, the hardship or to the hardship of herself and to the benefit of others. Because sometimes people want that kind of juicy gossip, like you just lost this match, what went wrong, what was going through your mind when you were 2 sets down or something like that. And yeah, if you're not in a place to answer those type of questions, or nor do you feel like you should be answering those questions, I think that's your right to say. So I like the fact that it normalized that, you know, the mental health, which has been so, I guess, popularized in the last few years. It kind of normalized that discussion to say that, you know, even people that are multimillionaires playing at the highest level, they suffer. And they feel the ill effects of mental health, of anxiety, of depression. And she was brave enough to speak out about it. And what I really like is that she almost preempted it by saying, I don't think I'm going to be feeling these interviews that are to come. So I'm going to give you the heads up from now to let you know that I'm not down to be interviewed. And from what I was reading before, it sounds like people have done it before, but they decide after a match. So I think it was Novak Djokovic, I think it might have been, he got disqualified when he hit the ball at the linesman's neck or something like that. I think it was in a recent tournament, and so he opted not to do the press conference after because he was just probably feeling a bit shitty, to be honest. But I think with Naomi Osaka, she preempted it and gave them notice, and maybe that's what they've taken a bit of disdain to, because they may feel like other people are going to do that in future. But to be honest, if it's for mental health, I'm all for it.
I think what's really scary is that it's not more just universally understood. I think that, and I think also the people that go through these things for the first time always get the most abuse. So I think Kanye West is also one of those people who pushes the boundaries first and then gets it, you know, wrong. He might say the wrong thing, but largely he's trying to push for more equitable, more fair distribution of wealth for creators, for artists, for you know, black people, whatever the thing is. And so normally those people get the most abuse. But I almost feel I'm so proud of her for doing that. Like, obviously my pride in her means nothing to her, but I just have a real affinity to people who take ownership of their own experience in the world. Because too often we just sign up to things and never really ask why. So like, if you ever consider a like sports interview, the questions are some of the dumbest questions in the world. Like, oh, you lost today. Are you going to try harder next week? Like you see it in Match of the Day where it's like, Jose, your team has just lost 6-0 at home. How do you feel? It's like, I feel good, bruv.
I mean, athletics is the worst one for me as well. Like, you've just ran a race, you're out of breath, and the first thing they do is stick a mic in your face because they want that immediate reaction. And you're right, if a person just lost or they just came second or, you know, they got disqualified or something, they don't want to speak to the camera. They don't want to do an interview. And I feel like what this has done is this is almost like, you know, the Wizard of Oz when you see behind the curtain and it's like, it's this old man who's really orchestrating things. I think what they're embarrassed by is that this kind of shows what happens behind the scenes, that some of these players don't always want to speak to us. They don't want to speak to media, but now they're speaking up about it. I think the powers that be feel a bit disgruntled because it kind of exposes the inner workings and the fact that they're only speaking to us because they don't want to get fined. And I think it was Marshawn Lynch, an NFL player. I think he attended the interview and he just said, "I'm here so I don't get fined." And that was his only answer during the interview. He just kept on saying, "I'm here so I don't get fined." So it does expose kind of, you know, the kind of the puppet masters in the background who are the reasons why. I mean, obviously they've got their own agendas, whether it's they want to create more publicity or they want to create a controversial story or whatever it is. But I think, yeah, the players are finally saying no and saying, actually, this isn't good for me. So
have you ever had to make a stand for your own piece? Like, have you ever had to, like, stop the wheels of the Ferris wheel at some point and just be like, and it come at a cost? Because I think that's the thing. I think we always sign up that if you're famous or if you're talented, your fame and money comes at the cost of, you know, no more privacy, no more. You don't own yourself anymore. You belong to the people that either pay you or you belong to the people that are supporters of yours, basically. Have you ever had to make that stand yourself?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, do you know what? Funny enough, recently at work, I was on a few projects, and I think because I've been working throughout the pandemic, I've been working on, you know, kind of like, because I work in local government, I've been working on projects where we've almost been like redeployed to respond to things to do with the pandemic, to do with lockdown. Recently, I said to my manager, like, I'm just tired. I'm beaten down. I'm worn out. I'm burnt out. I just need a bit of a break. I need a bit of a change. I want to stop working on like COVID-related projects, and I want to kind of get back to business as usual. And it's funny you asked that question because I feel the expense that came at was my pride, because as a you know, quote unquote strong black man, I didn't want to be seen as weak. I didn't want to be seen as I can't do this, I can't manage, and that only existed in my head. I don't think anyone else gave a toss. I don't think anyone else cared. But I created that narrative in my head where I felt for me to say that I don't want to do this might make me appear weak, and I don't want to appear weak. But the reality was I was feeling weak. I needed a bit of me time. I needed to step away. And I did, and I was better for it. But I did have that inner battle. I felt like I had the angel and demon on my shoulder. And, you know, I didn't know which way to go. If I'm honest, I didn't know which way to do it. And it's funny because we always talk about mental health. We talk about it on the podcast, talk about it in the group. But sometimes when you're in those real situations,
you know,
like, you do find yourself doubting yourself.
What's really interesting to me is that I think, and I maybe I don't want to keep making this personal, but like I feel like there's something where when you are the fuel for something or the fuel for someone, and I think about her as well, just like if you're number two in the world, that comes with pressure. So if she's not at all the major tournaments and she's the number two, she obviously has a fan base. She's bringing people into tennis. She's making it look good, and she's like, you know, inspiring a next generation to go out and pick up a racket or to tune in, and that adds to, you know, their revenue. So if press can't talk to the number two in the world, that's really problematic for them. And so then you start to see how quickly people turn on you when you feel like, because in her mind, she's like, I'm just really good at tennis. And I like playing. And their mind is like, right. So we build our next 10 years of tennis around this person. And, you know, we can probably now bank on a certain amount of ad revenue. She's a woman of color. She's big in Asia. Like, they've probably like commoditized her in such a way for their future. The idea of her saying no and pulling away is like, you're ruining our business plan. Like, and I kind of felt like that when I was like, I need to take a break. So imagine I'm saying I need to take a break for 6 months here, and everyone's like, oh yeah, you should take a break, and then be like, yeah, but can you just like, and then they didn't even pause between the like, you need a break and what I need, and I realized that, and after a while I was like, oh wow, this is not going to happen with like, because people always say if you are struggling with mental health, you should tell people, and you're like, all right, I'll tell some people then. So I started telling people, hey, I'm not doing very well. Can you help me with this thing? And it just wasn't happening. And I was like, I didn't understand what was taking so long. So then when I took it into my own hands at that point, that's when you see the truth of everything. And you're like, oh, I'm a product. I'm a service. It's something that benefits you. And the sadder part is I suppose for me personally, I always was asking people, what is your self-interest? Because I think, you know, in the context of tennis, the touring company, Roland Garros, their self-interest is clear. Revenue, we know. So we have an understanding of the relationship. And then if you break one part of that relationship, it's really, really clear. So if she doesn't turn up to press, that impacts what they're able to do. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's clear where the lines are between the relationship. I think sometimes in more personal or even sometimes traditionally professional relationships, those lines aren't really clear because, you know, the whole thing about working, the dynamic is that you need us to pay your mortgage. So you would do whatever it takes because if you don't do that, you can't pay your mortgage. And so most jobs don't really invest in what's the benefit to you to be there rather than going somewhere else. You know, in the beginning, they might be like, this is your financial package. So, you know, you get paid 40 grand a year and, you know, you get this many days off and you get this much sick days and you get paternity leave and you give it and you're like, oh, okay, they really care about this. How they're going to look after me. But in the actual experience of day to day of working, how many times do they like show up for you? How many times do they actually like create something bespoke because they've seen that you're not okay? It doesn't really happen very often. It's very much like your job is to turn up as the best as you can without no burden to us, and we will pay you on time.
Yeah, and I think what compounds that is, I think we've touched on before, like code switching. Like because of how we've had to adapt to cope in like, you know, Western society, we don't always show our true self at work. So sometimes like our representative that goes to work on our behalf makes it appear as though everything's okay, but it's like, if you ask me 3 times, then I'll tell you the truth. But when you've asked me once or twice how my day's been, you're just going to get a generic answer because I don't want to show you that vulnerability. I don't want to let my guard down. So I feel like sometimes we almost do ourselves a disservice by not bringing that to the surface sooner and feeling comfortable to share it. And I think on the flip side of that, a lot of people and a lot of friends I have, and maybe for you as well, that they still see work as a plantation. That's the kind of mindset. Like, we're just here to do our hustle, to get our money, and then we're going to be able to invest and do what we really want to do with our time and find real satisfaction in life. So I think there is, unfortunately, that mindset as well where, yeah, we just, you know, it's a 9 to 5, we just do our work, but, you know, we've got a master plan in the back of our minds, so we're just going to endure this suffering momentarily until we can build up to we can say to our manager or say to our job, actually, we don't really need you. We want to move on.
I suppose I was just thinking about what I just said, and I was just thinking, what would you like someone to do? So that you went through that at work, and you said that like this is really starting to weigh on me. It's impacting me. I remember when maybe about a year ago, you were saying that you were helping with some of the challenges, and you just like, actually, it's just very mentally heavy, and I just need to take some time to like not be in that space. What could people around you do to help you in that time? What would you like?
Good question. Yeah. I think empathy is probably like an easy one, but I think it's hard to kind of read at times because you don't want to overstep that professional line, as you know, kind of how you're describing that work. You don't want to overstep that line and pry too much. But especially for us, I think as, you know, as black people, there's a lot that's been happening, you know, whether it be, you know, George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and everything around racism, compounded by COVID, and then the disproportionate effect on the minorities with COVID, compound that with, you know, us just kind of being away from our friends and family and not kind of, you know, interacting in a normal way. I think you need to almost err on the side of people are suffering and kind of have that in your mindset. So rather than expect them to tell you or expect me to tell you it's tough, assume that it's tough because everything tells you it's tough. If you understand our experience and what we're going through, you should know that. And I think a lot of people at work, we talk a lot about intersectionality. And so what people have been good at is understanding, because of how they're affected in their protected characteristics and what happens to them, whether it be Sarah Everard, whether it be things around LGBT and stuff like that. I think you can sometimes almost transfer that empathy to say, I'm struggling with what's going on here, but I know what you're going through is 3-4 times as bad. So you must really be suffering. And I think sometimes that empathy helps to have the conversation. Because I'll be honest, what's difficult is when you're feeling the strain, is having a conversation with someone whose life is fine. Because you almost feel like either you're burdening or dragging them down, or you might feel a little embarrassed that everything in their life is going so perfectly. But when they approach you with, you know, I'm suffering, it's tough, I'm struggling, how do you feel? All of a sudden it's taken a weight off your shoulders. And for me personally, I'm much more likely to express how I feel and kind of get things off my chest.
So I just had a look into 8 tips of how to like support people with mental health challenges, and I think this is something that and we'll try and publish this as well somewhere, maybe on Instagram or maybe on somewhere, because I think it's so important. Because even me sometimes, I remember one of my friends, he's actually in Dope by Daz, but he was going through some stuff, and we had both been trained in a particular type of like framework and understanding, and all I was doing was quoting this framework at him, and I was just like, after a couple of weeks, I was like, this is yes, it's nice to be reminded of what you know. It's like when someone says, "Oh, I got punched in the face." It's like, "Well, did you have your hands up?" And it's like, well, sometimes it's like, "Yeah, I did, but he still punched me." It's like, well, look, what you got to do is like remember to move your head and have your hands up. You're just like, "Oh, bro, I'm sorry, you got punched in the face, bro." Like you just like that is also equally sometimes as valuable. So even me, like who has an awareness, I slip into this. So it's not about good and bad people or being perfect. It's just about being slightly more aware that maybe the help that you think you're given isn't actually help. So the 8 tips they give us is, one, is to set aside time with no distractions. So if you come to me and say that you're not feeling great, actually it's like, look, let's have a catch up without you, doing a secondary task in the background or being distracted by like on your second phone or tweeting or something while we're talking. That that's really important. But also that space has to be like open and non-judgmental. This is really, really important. The second thing is let the person share as little as much. So no coaching into like revealing more when they clearly don't feel comfortable. I think sometimes when people share stuff, they're only happy to share from a particular perspective. And, if you're embarrassed or ashamed about something, even if that's right or wrong, it's really important that you get to share how you feel without having, someone, telling you and challenging to kind of like coax more out. And if they just want to go, let them just go. Like say, look. And I think maybe as someone that's helping someone, it's really powerful if you say, look, I'm going to call you. I have 30 minutes, to give you, and I'm available for these 30 minutes, and then I have to go. But let them go for that 30 minutes. They'll probably feel significantly better. Sure. The third thing is like not to try and diagnose or second guess their feelings. So that's what I was doing when I mentioned earlier about telling him what I think is happening for him, rather than just listening to him and making him feel heard and seen. It was like this is this framework and that's not happening. And I think also when you second guess people's feelings, like especially if you're not qualified, so like I've been doing therapy for so long, I understand some of the themes, but where I went wrong for most of last year is I just didn't have any empathy about what I knew. It's like once I knew the racket you were in, which is what it's called, I just was just like, I know this is a con and I can't be bothered to engage you because this is not authentic. What you're really saying is, you're struggling with this from your own perspective, but now what you're making it is that it's somehow my fault because I didn't give you enough. When the reality is no one can give you enough because you don't feel you're enough. That, yes, that may be true, but one, I'm not qualified to diagnose that, but two, also it's just like there's no empathy in that. So, it doesn't allow people to feel and get what they need out. The next one is to keep questions open-ended, and this is a real skill about non-violent communication, which is like how does that make you feel, not like saying and that's why you feel this way, isn't it? Like don't coach them into an answer, just be like, well, how does that make you feel? What's the impact in that? How does that challenge you, or what's been the cost of doing all those things? And I think those things allow people just to speak more about things that they may not have thought about. And I think that's it's a really big skill, but it's something that if you know and can understand, asking questions is better than telling people what you think. The next thing is to talk about well-being and just say it out loud. Like what tips do you have? I have like 27 things that are on the list that I do every time I'm sad. One of them is like eating premium cookies, which I do very well. And the other ones are just like, having a bath or massaging my beard because my beard is patchy as hell and it's embarrassingly never really been able to it's never built an identity for itself. And so, I invested it every now and again. The sixth one is listen carefully to what they tell you. So sometimes I think we listen to people's emotion rather than the actual words that they're saying. So, if people say, I need this, you're like, ooh, I don't think you need this because actually I think if this happened to me, I would need this. And then you try to get them into your solution. So really listen to what it is that they're actually saying and agree to what they're saying. Without, showing that you understand without necessarily, you don't have to agree with it all, but showing that you understand and you empathize with what they're saying. Number 7 is offering them help in seeking professional support. So I always have the website for the Black and Asian network, for therapy network. I have it always on deck. It's copy and pasted in a notes folder just to shoot out to people when they ask about it. I used it plenty of times to find people. I actually found my person in South Africa and I'm going to keep using her. She's actually amazing. But yeah, having understanding of what different types of therapy looks like, because not all the time it's talking therapy. Sometimes it's like Reiki. Sometimes, go get a massage. Sometimes it's different things. It's more spiritual as well. And then last, number 8 is that know your limits. So, don't show up when you don't have it. Like, this is a real thing, and this is something that I used to do often quite a lot. It's like, because I feel like I have the skills to help, I would feel that because you asked, I must do it. But the reality is that sometimes, yeah, listen, I do have a God complex. If you haven't experienced my God complex, I genuinely believe I could do anything. So it has a gift and a curse, is that I will just add things to my load that I have no capacity to do. And then in that, you can actually create a worse experience than if you just said you were busy. So, knowing your own limits is fundamentally important. Does any of that resonate with you? Let me just quickly recap them, because I think it's important just to say them all quickly. So 1 is to set time aside with no distractions. 2 is to let them share as much or as little as they want. 3 is to not to try and diagnose them or second guess their feelings. 4 is about keeping questions open-ended. 5 is to talk about well-being. 6 is to listen carefully to what they tell you. 7 is to offer them help in seeking professional support. And 8 is knowing your own personal limits. Does any of that land with you?
Yeah, 100%. I've got an amazing manager at the moment at work, and it sounds like she must have read them word for word, because in conversation, that's exactly what she was doing. And I feel like what adds extra layer of difficulty on top of that is how you approach the person with any of those points. Because if you do it in like a way that may cause offence, or in a way that may doubt them, they're going to close up, and they're going to feel as though you don't trust them, you don't think they're competent, you don't think they're able. But if you're able to recognise some of the triggers, I think what my manager did really well was able to recognise my triggers. So seeing, 3 months ago, you're really infused, you're really dynamic, you're full of ideas. Now you're doing just what you need to do. You've lost all of that kind of energy and passion. And because I declined gradually, I didn't notice that. I just knew I'm not as up for it as I was, last month. I'm not as up for it as I was 2 months ago. But it's really good to have someone that can spot your triggers, and then to learn your own triggers. Because I realised that I'm naturally an introvert. But what I've realised is when I'm just not involved, I just go super quiet. Like, I've almost switched off, and I'm like, I'm not here. And there were meetings at work where that was my approach, where, maybe 2 months ago I was really infused and I was dynamic in that meeting. But then I just backed out and I just said the bare minimal, did my work, and then just signed off. So I think, noticing your triggers and having someone that can notice them is really helpful. And all the steps that you described, I think there is like a tact to how you can bring that to each person. So my manager will just kind of pull me to a side. We'll have one-to-ones, start off with a general conversation, ask about the family, and then kind of dive into the how are you feeling, how are you finding work, what's going on. And over time, I probably didn't open up straight away. But as you were saying there, over time, I began to open up more and kind of just get more things off my chest. And when I found out that the ground didn't swallow me, I didn't get struck by lightning by kind of showing my vulnerability, it was like, actually, I can do this. I can do what Naomi did. I can say no, or I can say this isn't for me. And I think that's a powerful place to be in, because otherwise, like you said, you'll just beat yourself up, and you'll commit to everything, you'll under-deliver, and then you'll feel even worse, and then it's just a vicious cycle.
But you know what's really crazy, is because I obviously as a business owner on the other side, it's really interesting. Yeah. So I do that all the time. I really, really care about everyone that's in my team and what they're working with. And I always used to ask really hard-hitting questions, because I need to know what your state is for the mission. But what I also realized is that it created this like proximity and safety where like work came second. It was like, our relationship is first, and actually, this is what my feelings are, and you don't honor my feelings. It's like, no, this is the mission is still the mission, and I still care about what you think, but the mission comes first, and then like, if you get like, I think the best analogy I have is that if you get impacted delivering the mission, I care enough to hear about it, listen to it, try and find remedies that are, within the context of what the remit is of our working relationship.
Sure.
But if you just had a bad day out of the world, and let's just say someone's ill and you want a week off, fine, go. That's real life stuff. Go for it. Yeah. If you're just having a bad day because you woke up and the day isn't great, you don't feel great about yourself, your boyfriend isn't nice to you or something, then there's a limit to the level of compassion and a level of flexibility that I can give to those things. Like, yes, I might be like, well, look, take a little half an hour. Don't bother to come to this meeting, take a minute, but I need you in the game in an hour. I can't have you like, my boyfriend, and you don't care about my boyfriend. I'm not saying that's ever happened, by the way, but I'm just saying that there's a balance between big life things and your day-to-day welfare, and what you are responsible for as a person versus what I can facilitate as your employer, as your business partner or whatever. And that line is slightly, it's a difficult balance to get. And figuring it out myself. So I wouldn't criticize anybody for not getting it right. But how much of it is personal and how much of it is what about the mission though?
And I think on top of that as well, a great way, like even for you and for me as well, we probably built resilience by going through things that we didn't want to go through, but we went through it and we became better because of it. And so I think that's another layer to add on top of it. That actually, if you run away from every challenge, you're never going to grow, you're never going to develop. So you need to understand, as you said, like when it's you're just down in the dumps, but you can pull yourself out of it and you can go. Or when you're suffering from depression or you're really low and you need help, you need someone to support you through that process. But I completely agree. And I think that's why I find it difficult to judge, because I know I've endured and I've pushed through things before, that when that feeling does come around again, I think, okay, should I keep pushing or should I stop? And that's sometimes a hard judgment call to make. But you're right, I think for the sake of a business and a mission, more importantly, if we gave up at the first hurdle, look at the civil rights and look at other areas that have gone by, people went to task and they kind of went on the front line and they fought against every opposition that came their way, and now we're reaping the benefits. We're not where we want to be, but we're still reaping the benefits of that fight that we put in. And had we given up at that time, we wouldn't have been here. So
the other thing that's really, really loud to me, and I suppose this hit me in maybe between 2012 and 2015, I basically wasn't doing very well, like in terms of just professionally. I was still probably making some sort of money, but it wasn't very considered or thought out. It was just holding on to like the idea of making enough money to provide for my family, rather than actually what I wanted to do. So, I think also where a lot of that disconnection comes as a person is that you're probably not doing the thing you should be doing. And too often we sign up to like pay our bills, because obviously like when you finish school, the programming is that you have to get a job, you have to be employable, and so your whole focus is being employable. But do you ever consider what actually it is that you should be doing? I think this generation now, I would say the people under 25 might have it a bit more than maybe we did in our mid-30s now, where I feel like we were just taught. I remember having my National Record of Achievement, that terrible folder, and they were like, if you don't look after this folder, you will be nothing. It's not full of achievements. It's like I think I showed it to one person, and they looked at it, opened it, put it down, and started asking me questions. Like, and you think about what we were taught and what we were bred to think at that time. It was just to get a job and be employable, but very few of us chose what we were being employed for. What was your part? 'Cause I think about Naomi. She's like obviously chosen to be a tennis star, and so she obviously enjoys the actual work, but the culture around the work maybe she doesn't enjoy as much. But you're saying that at times you don't even enjoy your work at times. So it's like what was your path into that work?
I think I what I've realized now is that I adapted to things as they develop. So I'll be in one job, and then when another opportunity came around, when there was an opportunity for promotion or for a secondment or to do shadowing or something, I'd transition, I'd step over. And I think what I've probably not done enough now is I've not kept that same energy, and I've been doing the same thing for a period of time. And it's funny because when I look back now, I can see actually within 2-3 years, I would have moved around, I would have done something different, I would have challenged myself in a new way. And also what I like doing on top of that is doing like vocational things outside of work. So whether it be Dope Black Dads, whether it be like mentoring, whatever it might be, I look for satisfaction in other areas of my life, because I appreciate that my job might not tick all the boxes. So I need to find other things that make me happy and other things that I can do to find that fulfillment, and just make sure I've got that balance. But I think you made a perfect point when you were talking about, are we doing what makes us happy or doing what we're supposed to be doing? Because something can serve a purpose for a while, but if you're somewhere for a year that you should have been for 6 months, you're going to feel uncomfortable, you're going to feel unhappy. And I feel like, not saying, for example, that I need to leave, but I need to look at how I can refresh what I do, look for other opportunities, and look at how I can continue to challenge myself and grow. Because if I don't, I've only got myself to blame. I can't play the victim narrative, because it's me not doing enough. It's not about people holding me back or anything like that. So I guess, again, it's about, listening to myself and thinking, shit, like what can I do that makes me want to jump out of bed in the morning and attack my day? And thankfully, the projects I've been given now, I'm back on that. I'm excited about what I'm doing. But when I had that slump, I probably sat in it for a little while longer than I needed to, because I couldn't properly identify how I was feeling.
So then how much does a role of like, because if I think what causes unhealthy minds then? What is the thing? Is it work? Is it is it people in your life? Is it everything equally? Or because I think sometimes capitalism or the division of capitalism drives us to think that we're not good enough, or we're not smart enough, or we're not, beautiful enough.
Sure.
And it's just driving consumerism, isn't it? Like, we want you to be slightly insecure so that you buy things to feel better. If everybody felt secure and empowered and full, then we wouldn't buy anything. But what I realized when I went to my retreat, one of the big messages was to really simplify when things aren't working. So cut down to like significantly less everything, like any outgoings, interactions, commitments, go all the way down and rebuild where it works for you, where it feels good. And I think, if you're, what I realized maybe 2 years ago is that in the quest to make a lot of money, I started investing more money in making money. Okay. And so, I'm buying properties and, doing all these things. I was just like, but hold on, doing all of this takes me away from the thing that actually makes me happy, because I feel like what I should be doing as a dad is like securing my children's future. And so I spend a lot of money doing things that I can't maintain because I'm too tired and I'm too stretched. So it's probably better if and I remember, this is what actually happened, is I remember seeing one of our investing groups and they were talking about stuff and I was like, I don't even have the time to follow this up. And it's like, maybe I should though. Maybe I spend 2 hours here rather than like running my 2 Airbnbs and burning myself into the ground. Like, I just think maybe how we approach it. Like, would you frame capitalism or friendships, or what would you frame it as?
I think definitely capitalism, as you said, and I think it trickles down. You go on social media, you're only ever going to see the highlight reel. You're only going to ever see the best, and it's very easy to feel inadequate when you see what other people are doing and what they're achieving. I mean, I know we spoke on a podcast a few months back about mediocrity, and people not really being content with mediocrity and therefore always striving to be the best. But not everyone can be the best, and I think so. There's something there about wanting more but being satisfied with what you have, and if you're not careful with all the external influences, and it can be well-intended people like friends and family, it can pull you out of your comfort zone and place you somewhere where you feel uncomfortable. And so that's what I try to protect that a bit more. And luckily, I think everyone's had a hard reset with lockdown, where you've just been sat at home not doing much. So all the stunting and all the kind of showboating and everything, that's kind of gone out the window because everyone's been at home kind of focused on self. But with lockdown lifting, I think we're going to get back to that. And I can see where a lot of people may get burnt out trying to keep up with the Joneses and trying to, show that they're living their best life, when actually they might prefer themselves just being at home and just reading a book and kind of, settling in with their family, as opposed to,
or just running around with machetes. There's something really, I think post-lockdown, everyone's trying to cram their last 2 years of lack of going out into like right now. And so I got back in and I could feel a hum of I'm trying to have fun, like just walking past bars and people were laughing just a little bit harder, and it was just like you really needed this. You could just feel it, like walking past restaurants.
You missed it a few weeks ago when restaurants could dine outside. It was it was cold, it was freezing, and people wearing coats, huddled under little canopies trying to stay warm, and they're eating dinner. You don't want to be eating dinner outside. You're just doing it because now it's an option, but you don't really want to be.
Listen, I feel like because in one of the Vipassana, they do these things called discourses, and the discourse is an hour long that talks to you about the teaching in depth. And in one of them is like there was this example of a healthy mind was about attachment and what are you attached to, and he says like you cannot be attached to things and live a happy life. You can't, because you have to accept that everything can be gone, everything could be taken, everything could change. And usually when I'm unhappy, and I was thinking about this, I was like, Rod, every time I'm really not happy, it's because something changed that I was attached to. Right. It's always a person or a job or a situation that I'm like, I really, really like this. And you get so attached that as soon as it's not available to you, your heart breaks. And you're like, what about me? And I feel, and this person, and you got all these stories about how it's gone. But the reality is, and I suppose when I started Dope Black Dads, it was just because I needed it. It was just so pure. And one of my friends actually said is like, don't turn it into a thing. Okay. So he rang me and goes, it's great, don't turn it into a thing. And I was like, no, it's not, I'm not turning it into a thing. Like, this is just for me. Like, right now it's just very selfish. This is like month 1 to 6. This is very selfish. It's about what I need. And then what happened is that I no longer needed the group like that in the way that I designed it in. I didn't need it because the challenge that I had gone, and me and my daughter were doing great. And so what then happened is But everybody was coming to me and being like, I really loved, like, it meant so much. And I think it wasn't necessarily an egoic response. It was more of an accountable response of like, oh, you this is really helping you. Let me advance it and make it a bit more stable and a bit more structured and make it clearer, and I'll communicate it and build it into something so everyone can use it and then slip out. So, I'm thinking you can slip out of these things. You can't slip out of the thing you've invented.
No,
and so, I made a commitment last year that I would spend 12 months turning it into a grown-up organization, give it all the things that it needs to survive, and then I would step down and hand it over to somebody else to run. And I quickly realized, is that a few people said they really loved it, but nobody asked me to actually create anything else. They were just like, I really, really enjoy it. And what I could have just said is like, great, thank you, I'm glad you enjoy it. And so then if I then decided it didn't work for me, that I could just disappear. Like I can step away from the thing, even if I am the founder of it, even it's just because it's there for everybody else. If you want to use it and put your thoughts into a WhatsApp group or the Facebook group, that's really what it's about. If you want to go on the podcast and talk about stuff, go and talk about it. The platform is there, but it shouldn't actually need me to be sustainable, because when movements are centered around any one person, it's only a matter of time before it all goes on fire, because people are incredibly fallible. Like, I think about Black Panthers movements, and that was slightly different because they intentionally tried to sabotage them. But every single black movement or any movement of great change has been sabotaged.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the thing. When, as you said, if you idolize the leaders, if the leaders are taken out, everything crumbles, because that's what people were, they may not have bought into the idea as much as they bought into the individual. And so without the individual, everything crumbles. But you do want to, and even what you're saying, you want to build things up for people to be self-sufficient, so they get to the point of they can do it themselves. And you've got all these other mini Marvins out there, like kind of, running and leading things in their own way, in their own spaces. And I think that's powerful. Yeah, and I think on what you said, I think sometimes people don't know what they don't know. So they don't know that that's what they need, because that idea's never been posed to them. They've always seen it as, I need a leader, I need a figurehead. But when you say, like, you're the leader, and it's funny because you mentioned Kanye earlier, and you also mentioned God complex, and Kanye had that song where he said, I am a God. I think many people took that, in the wrong way. But I think what he's saying is, we are the gods of our lives, we are the gods of our own destiny. The buck stops with us, and we need to lead like that.
I think about accountability is that, and this happens with other language like freedom of speech. People completely misinterpret and misunderstand what it is to suit their own, what they want. And I think, like, if you want someone to come in and solve your problems for you, I want that too, by the way. I do. Someone came and said, all the things that you find difficult, here's the answer, and it's free.
Yeah.
Like, I want that.
Yeah, you're going to take it, yeah. Exactly.
But in reality is that, that's not going to happen, and you then need to show up for yourself, really. And I think there's something about the mental approach of how you take on these things and how you sustain those changes that is going to define, your own future. So like when we're saying, are you signing up to the wrong thing? Are you signing up to capitalism because you never really considered what it is? It's like, they told me I need to get married. They told me I need to buy a house. They told me I need to buy a car. They told me to have 2 kids. 4 kids is not really worth doing anymore because it's really expensive, but get 2. Like, so I've done all of those things and I'm not happy. And you're just like, well, because what was the mission though in the beginning? And the mission probably didn't really even exist. It was just like your tick boxing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's where some of it goes wrong. And I think in other ways in your life, in your job and the things that you're connected to, it's really important that you take your own accountability for the thing, and you're not relying on, a free volunteer service to guide your happiness and your quality of worth. Like, I just think it's impossible to sustain that. And I think also, I just think the concept of being dope is like, you are a bit of that anyway. Because not everyone needs to be a bloody entrepreneur. We don't need a million more entrepreneurs waking up and doing that. There are many different roles for different people. You can, for every entrepreneur, you need 10 employees or something. So it's like, you do need people to actually facilitate without the burden of like, it's like entrepreneurialism is a nightmare, but like about the burden of all the work. And that's a part of it. And I think we're always trying to sell this idea of like, you're only valuable if you are this type of person, and that's not the thing anymore. Those days are well and truly over. We value you for whatever role you play, but just play it with integrity and play it to the best of your capacity, really, I suppose.
No, I mean, I completely agree. I think it kind of goes back to the part of Naomi. If she felt that this wasn't a tournament for her, or she didn't want to do any interviews, I think it's just that power of making your own decisions. And and you feel like you're doing something wrong, but maybe you're just doing something that's never been done before. And I think what really offended everyone that's taken offence, like you said, like with the right wing, is that it's like someone's finally speaking up and standing up against them, and they feel threatened by that. And I think that's the power. We need to make our own decisions and sometimes say no to things when it no longer serves us. You know, it could have worked for you every day up until today, but if it doesn't work today, you say no, you turn it down, you step away from it, because that prioritizes your well-being and kind of like your safety and your love and your, you know, the wellness that you need in your own life. Don't just do things for the sake of it and suffer for others when it'll be at your detriment. So yeah, I completely agree.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for that. That's a really, because, you know, it's just on my mind. Like, I just woke up and I was like, I had a real connection to Naomi Osaka. I just see her and I'm like, when I think of black women, there's particular types of black women that I think, I know I appreciate she's mixed, but there's types of women that I think about across the intersection. And I'm just like, she's someone, like, she's not a, she's not a flashy, like, extravagant. She's just a person that's very talented.
She turns up, she wins, she goes. Like,
I just want to normalize that part, because you know, and maybe you knew this growing up as well. Like, I think when we looked at the school playground, it was all divided into very much extremes. You either like the handball guy, the football guy, the brain guy, the fighter. You know, everyone had their like characteristics. And I just felt like you then had to wear that armor to the nth degree, and you couldn't just be good at something and without the like extra bit. So it's like you couldn't be smart but then not have like the glasses and the bad trainers. Like you know, if you had good trainers, it was like, yeah, but you're being a nerd. And so whereas like if you were the slightly, I don't know, be disrespectful, but the slightly overweight South Asian guy with glasses, they'll be like, oh, that's acceptable way that nerds should look, so we're never going to bother with you. But you're a black guy that's got Nikes on and you love English. It's like, oh, you're gay.
You don't
it's just like, what? And I think just being really good at your job is a really powerful new stance. And that's something that I think we should all really focus on. Because one of my friends, he's a business owner, and he's just done really, really well in the last year or so. He's been doing well for a while, but specifically in the last year or so. And we caught up over the weekend, and we were just talking about, like, you know, like even myself, my career over 15 years, there's a lot of really high profile people or other people who have been really successful around me. Whatever I've created has facilitated success for others, whether it's like Sunday Show, my marketing career, music career, advertising. There's a lot of people that I've employed, that I've managed, that I've found or whatever, that have done really, really well. And was like, that's just what we do though. That's not to say it's not for me to get patted on the back for that. It's just a part of, if you're around me, good things happen and you're welcome to take full advantage of it. And I'm not going to sit there and be like, I made you, and without me you would never. But I do think it's like, it's important that I know that though. I know that there's a benefit to being around, because things will come across and I'm never going to get in anybody's way to go and take them. And so I feel like I can be pleased about knowing what my impact is. And maybe that would only ever truly come out when someone passes away. You fully get the flowers of what you create for others. But there's a real like acceptance of just being good at what you do without the story around it and without like overselling it or making yourself too important. And it's funny because I've been saying I'm not important since we launched Dope Black, mainly because, like, you know, I know what I can do, but it's not for everybody. Like, I don't feel like my methods of creating a community group serve everybody. Like, I think about Dare a lot. Dare is like, he's just a great guy. He's just a great. But every time we have a conversation, we're on the opposite ends of how we think it should be done. Every time, without fail. He's way more socialist than I am. But like. So when I speak to him, I can see how we're just disconnect on most subjects, but also as people, we have a lot of connection. So, you know, when I speak to him, I'm like, I love how you think. You have a real view for yourself. And I think that's what, you know, brings everyone peace, is when you own your version of your own existence and you present it to the world on your own. And then if you can get help, it's great, but the help isn't essential in your mind. You don't need it. You know, like sometimes where the rappers are like, you know, someone might have a mixtape and be like, the label won't listen to my mixtape. You just make your fans listen to it and make stuff that they care about, and then it will be successful. So, yeah, I think that acknowledgement of just like what your true presence is and the value of it can only be internal. It can never be something that you can communicate externally or try to productize externally. It's just like, it just is like, good things happen when I'm in my flow. And so I try to stay in my flow more than not. And I think that can apply to many things.
Yeah, no, I mean, wow, that's some, because even for me, I was just thinking, like, you know, it's about saying that we are enough. Even though we want to achieve and do more, I think sometimes it comes from a lack of contentment within ourselves. And what it reminds me is, you know, so many times I wanted to go out there and take on the world and defeat every problem. But knowing that my son's just content with me just being his dad and just playing Lego with him or playing football, like, that shows me that, you know, there's a fight to fight out there, but we can also be content and we can know that we're enough and we can take charge in our own life. So yeah, I think that sums up nicely, because otherwise, you know, you're taking on battles that aren't for you.
That's really powerful. Anyway, yeah, bro, thank you so much, man. Because I think
pleasure.
when we talk about the mental capacity, I think the things that I've learned is like what's for me and what's not for me, just like you said. But I also realize attachment is a very heavy reason for why discomfort comes for me. And I got to let things go and accept whatever journey they go on to, and empower people to do their own thing. And I think if you think about that for Naomi, that's about, you know, tennis may not long-term be for her. Like, she may need to find another calling, because if the cost is that you're going to get fined every tournament or disqualified and kicked out because you refuse to speak to press, you know, you've made $50 million. Maybe that's enough. Do you need to do anything else? Just play tennis or just create. And this is I don't want to go another one, but this is another thing where it's like, why don't you just create your own tournaments? Play people you want to play. Somebody will pay for the rights for it. You're the number 2 in the world. And then just create your own rules. Exactly. There's no press conferences.
That's a fact.
Like, just, you know, and I think you may not make 50 million, but you might make 5 and be happy. Definitely. And I think that's a very, very different environment, where I think you take more accountability for the things that don't work for you and create a counter to the thing that's not working, because clearly it's out of date. But also think about your life, where you can show up and take more ownership and not be at the whim of, you know, everybody else's decisions, because it's just not a nice place to be. I don't think you can be at peace living in other people's head rent free.
Yeah, definitely.
My G. Cool. Thank you, bro. Really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
We'll catch up again next week and see who else is around. I have no idea what we're going to talk about next week, but Father's Day is coming, everybody. Just a message to any mothers or women listening. You know, if you do have a partner in your life and they are a father of your child, please try and make it special. We do like socks and we do like underwear. It's a really important part of our annual budget for these things, because we probably not buy it ourselves. But if you're going to do that, just get the nice ones, Calvin Klein, you know, the sexy ones, you know. Just go the extra mile, man. And if you don't have the Calvin Klein money, then just, you know, let's try and make it special, man. Make something handmade, you know, think of something really nice. Really go in on Father's Day. We all know it's the, like, Z list of national holidays. There next to Hanukkah. No, I say Hanukkah. Lord, I was meant to say Kwanzaa. Lord Jesus, started right. It's there next to Kwanzaa and like Juneteenth and how we celebrate it. But you know, it's really, really important that you know, you show up for fathers. You know, we're all trying and we're putting our shift in. But you know, we get one day. We get a morning. We don't get a day. We get a morning. We get 2 hours in the morning, and so just give us that 2 hours, man. That's all we want. Cool, guys. Thank you so much.